Hello, everyone. How are we feeling? I said it yesterday, just before qualifying. I'm going to say it again today. I feel like this weekend could be really good. I feel like this weekend could be very, very exciting. Hello, everybody. How are we doing? Michael wants Alonso to finish first. That would be something special, and the Spanish crowd would absolutely love it. Of course, Carlos Sainz also in the mix there as well. Carlos Sainz wants to win so bad. Lofi's in there. Antonio's in there, of course. Sally, hello to everybody. How are we all doing? Carlos the Versatile says, Carlos, my baby. Starting from the third row of the grid. And to be fair, the Ferrari, I think, will have a little bit of race pace as well. How do you get to be a moderator? Yeah, just earn my trust. Antonio can put it better there. Just show you are worthy. No, Antonio and Sally have been around for such a long time, you know. I trust them with my channel, with my life during the races, and that's sort of how they got it. Hello, May, Ali in there as well. Hakan, how are you doing? Alex, Clara, as always, a mix of people from a mix of places. I just love to know, like, just a ridiculous amount that all of the world comes together for Formula One, right? It's just incredible that we have people from all over the place. Kelly in there as well. Hello, Kelly. How you doing? Evening. Hope Carlos Orlando wins. Lando is going to win. P6 broke my heart, but still hoping he wins. Could be there. How many DRS zones? 2 DRS zones here in Spain. Shall we get into it then? I'm seeing a few predictions coming into the chat anyway. Triforce Tales, how you doing? Hamza as well. Hello. Hello. Finally get to watch the live stream live for the first time instead of replays. Well, Haley, welcome. It is absolute chaos. I'm not going to lie to you. And this race is also looking like it's going to be a little bit of a mad one because it's going to be a mix, right? Mixed grid. What do we want to do first? A little bit of predictions, or should we have a little look at the grid? Let's start by looking at the starting positions for all of the drivers, because there have been a couple of little changes here and there for people who watched qualifying with us yesterday. You'll have seen that Lando Norris picked up his second ever pole position in Formula One. Can he convert that into his second ever victory? I certainly hope so, but we'll have to wait and see because Max Verstappen is starting just beside him. Second on the grid, still first in the championship, Max Verstappen, but it does feel like the Red Bull is just under that bit more pressure. You know, you look at the first 5 races of the season, Max Verstappen looked like he was going to comfortably win this championship. Had it not been for a failure for his rear right tyre in Australia, he'd be leading the championship by even more of a margin. Looked like he was going to win that race as well. Obviously fell into the hands of Carlos Sainz in the end. But does feel like there's just a bit of a mix. Both of the Mercedes suddenly looking like they've got pace. We thought it might just be a one-off in terms of their pace in Canada, and that the Canada track did suit a lot of the positives that there are in that Mercedes build. But no, they've come to Spain next time around. They kept some of that pace. Lewis Hamilton starting third, George Russell in fourth. Ferrari seemed to be frustrated more than anything else. You know, they had an absolutely torrid weekend in Canada, and we thought maybe that was just a one-off. Obviously, they're much higher up in the standings than they were starting in Canada, but 5th and 6th place, Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz, they were both a little bit unhappy with that starting position. And then the madness that is this Formula One season. You remember how in Bahrain, Alpine looked like they weren't even part of the race, might as well have been part of Formula 2. Both of them through, starting in the points and considerably in the points. 7th place Pierre Gasly, 8th place Esteban Ocon. And suddenly, it looks like a completely different season has started for Alpine 10 races in. And it's becoming more and more of a thing, this in Formula One, isn't it? When teams finally click with their car for the season. We saw it with McLaren last year, 10 races in. We're now seeing it maybe with Alpine. I know they had a good result in Monaco, a fairly decent weekend in Montreal, but it does feel like this weekend has been a big step up for the Alpine team. It's a shame that the behind the scenes at Alpine are just absolute chaos, by the way, because it's mental. Esteban Ocon, though, starting just in front of Oscar Piastri. Really frustrated with Oscar yesterday. Felt like he did have the pace. A mistake on his first run, a mistake on his second run. Didn't quite happen for him in the end, unfortunately. Both laps deleted due to track limits. The second lap in particular, a really big trip through the gravel, just completely cut any chance of that being a decent lap. And Fernando Alonso sneaks into the top 10. Did drop out in Q2 yesterday, but the man starting behind him, Sergio Perez, had a 3-place penalty that rolled over from Montreal because he broke his rear wing, remember, and then drove back to the pits. And the steward said that he was driving whilst the car was a little bit too dangerous to drive, effectively. Because if that rear wing had have fallen off, could have caused absolute chaos for somebody who was following on behind him. So it's just one of those things that, yeah, Sergio Perez, 3-place penalty, starts in 11th place. I mean, even with that 3-place penalty, he'd have only started like in the mix just in front of Esteban Ocon. So not the best day for Sergio Perez overall anyway. He'll start beside Valtteri Bottas, of course, ex-Mercedes. We saw those two side by side a little bit during their 2021 campaigns where they were battling for the championship against one another. Constructors' Championship, I should say. Their teammates battling for the Drivers' Championship. But Valtteri Bottas in at 12th place and a big step forwards for Stake Sauber as well. You know, we've been talking about Haas having a really good start to the season, RB having a really good start to the season. Alpine and Stake maybe just stepping it up a little bit, although Nico Hülkenberg keeping himself within touching distance, starting in 13th place. Lance Stroll starting in 14th place. And the Aston Martin, actually, didn't mention it when I mentioned Fernando Alonso, but the Aston Martin just not looking like the 5th fastest car anymore either. Like, does seem like it's kind of 6th fastest at best, and that 5th fastest interchanging between RB, sometimes Alex Albon's Williams, and just really mixed in that midfield now. I think they'll be fine in terms of finishing 5th in the Constructors' Championship, though, because of Fernando Alonso's insane start to the season. Zhou Guanyu starts in 15th place. A little bit frustrating for Joe. I think, again, he was talking about the fact that he's not fully comfortable in this car. He's slowly getting there. It's getting better for him, but still not there yet. Kevin Magnussen dropped out in Q1. Disappointing again if you look at where Hülkenberg is, only 3 places ahead, but that Haas just doesn't seem to have clicked with Kevin Magnussen in the way it has with Nico Hülkenberg. And obviously Hülkenberg is off at the end of the season, so Magnussen trying to prove himself that he can still deserve that Formula One seat. Ollie Behrman looking like he's going to replace Nico Hülkenberg. Will Haas decide to replace both drivers? We're yet to see. Then it's the 2 RBs, Yuki Tsunoda and Daniel Ricciardo. Yuki Tsunoda confirmed for next season during the Montreal Grand Prix weekend. Daniel Ricciardo just behind, still fighting for his Formula One future, and a really off weekend for RB. Not where we've expected to see them over the course of this start of the season. Logan Sargent starts in 19th place. Bit of a weird one. He was 20th fastest in qualifying, then also got a 3-place penalty, so technically should have started 23rd, but you can't do that. There's only 20 cars. And then his teammate Alex Albon has decided to start from the pit lane after changing around a few constituent parts in his power unit. So Alex Albon starting from the pit lane, even though Sargent had a 3-place penalty, actually jumps up a position into 19th. Alex Albon drops to 20th, and as I said, will start from the pit lane. That is your 20 drivers going into the Spanish Grand Prix then, and how it happened yesterday in qualifying. What are we all thinking then? Who's putting £5 on Alpine caused chaos? I mean, yeah, it's always a question mark now that, especially now that Esteban Ocon is not going to be part of the Alpine team going into next season. It would not surprise if Esteban Ocon goes for a move on Pierre Gasly, akin to what we saw in Monaco. Like, I know Pierre Gasly ended up scoring points that weekend anyway because of the red flag and got a little bit lucky, but that could have easily gone the other way. I think Alpine will just pray and hope for a double points finish, because actually if you look at the Constructors' Championship, a double points finish easily gets them above Haas, and Haas really not looking like the force that they were in the first sort of 5-6 races. I feel like could be a massive deal for Alpine to just get in front of Haas and actually start to look at that RB, because RB 28 points, 23 points the gap. If Alpine can actually finish in the top 10 on a marginal a marginal amount of times compared to RB, that gap can close. It's going to be really tough, don't get me wrong, but that gap can close, but only if both of the Alpine cars are going to actually be finishing in the points fairly often. So they need to finish 7th and 8th, really. I mean, Piastri behind, Alonso behind. You'd kind of expect them maybe to creep ahead. Sergio Perez as well, but they need at least one of the Alpines to finish in the points. Thank you, Cornell, for subscribing to the channel. If you are new here, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel as well. Helps us out massively as we build towards 90,000 subscribers now, which seems absolutely ridiculous. We might even hit that 100,000 subscriber goal before the end of the season. And it seems mental to say because my goal coming into this season was to hit maybe 30,000 subscribers. It's been absolutely ridiculous, the amount of support that we've seen in recent weeks, and I cannot thank you all enough. Also, if you do want to support the channel even more, I know it's a little bit cheeky to say, but you can become a member of the channel. That supports us even more so, or just by watching the content. There's a link down in the description to the most recent video that I made where I did 100 simulations on Formula 1 2024 and saw what the championship would look like in their opinion, their expert opinion. These guys that actually make the Formula 1 game, what do they think the Formula 1 standings are going to look like? So you can click that link and watch it just before we get underway, or maybe just have it on in the background. That'd be absolutely amazing. That'd be brilliant if you could just, open that in another tab, have it on, let it play through, let the ads roll. Wonderful stuff for all of you. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. How long until the race start? We've got about 15 minutes until we get underway. Cars are on the grid, though. Well, apart from Alex Albon starting from the pit lane. But everybody else on the grid, getting ready and raring to go. Which team Carlos is going to join? I think he's kind of left it a little bit late, to be honest with you. I feel like he had his choice of teams and could have basically gone anywhere he wanted, bar Red Bull, which I think is the one that he was really waiting for, unfortunately. I don't think he can wait any longer. I do think he does need to make a decision. He's even said it himself. He needs to decide where he's going to go fairly soon. I thought we might even see a little bit of an announcement this weekend. We've heard from him, and the fact that he said he does want to make a decision forwards and he does want to get his future confirmed for the foreseeable future. I think we'll see before the summer break. If it was me, it's a 50-50 between Stake and Williams, isn't it? Depends whether he really trusts the Audi project. And if anything, if he's going to go to Audi, he needs to basically commit until around, I think it's going to be 2030 before we see Audi possibly being a real front runner in Formula 1. I do think it's going to take them that long to close the gap to the rest of the team. We saw Aston Martin jump into it at the beginning of 2023, but to sustain yourself as a top team is a completely different thing. And okay, Aston Martin did it for the first 10 races of last season. Now look where they are. They're back where they kind of started in that midfield pack. It is so hard to actually keep yourself right at the top of Formula 1. And that's why you have to applaud the likes of Red Bull, Mercedes that have just done it again and again and again throughout the decades that we've had of Formula 1. It is ridiculous what those teams are able to achieve, in my opinion. Alex starting from the pit lane. Yes, indeed. Took a couple of power unit change pieces to his power unit changes. So he was going to start from 19th anyway. I think they wanted to get a new, I can't remember what it was now. I think it was a control unit and possibly part of the MGUK or MGUH, something along those lines. They wanted to get another one into the car at some point and decided, you know what, we're starting from 19th. We may as well take the penalty now rather than having to take it later on in the season. Makes sense. They wanted to kind of get that shift done. Carlos drive the safety car in 2025. I think he's a little bit better than that. I do feel like Williams are absolutely desperate to get a hold of him. It'd be a coup for Williams to get a hold of. In fact, I made a video on this. Carlos Sainz and his situation kind of explained. It's linked in the description as well if you want to watch that one instead. But yeah, I think it's a 50-50 between Williams and Stake. Depends on whether he wants more now. I feel like if you want something a little bit shorter term, you go Williams, although it's a big gamble. If you want something really long term, I feel like it's a bit less of a gamble because I do think Audi will get there eventually just because of the sheer amount of money behind them and the name Audi that they have. I feel like they could move in that direction, if you know what I mean. But yeah, it depends on what he wants. It also depends on the contract that he wants as well. Because if he goes to Audi, he's going to get maybe double the money they could have, you know what I mean? It's going to be a ridiculous amount of money that he is offered from the Audi setup. Nando, short for Fernando, is pretty confusing. Go to Sky Sports 3. Thoughts on where Piastri will finish? I'd like to see him get in front of both the Alpines. I think it's going to be... The problem is Piastri still has that tyre management issue. If he can get ahead of the Alpines, maybe one of the Ferraris, I think that's an exceptional day. I think he has to get in front of the Alpines. Also, if he can keep Sergio Perez behind. So it's kind of that... There's a few things that I'd quite like to do. When is the race starting? Plus, do I even read the comments? I'm literally replying to the comments right now. 13 minutes. Why is Albon last starting from the pit lane? Taking a power unit. Any updates on McLaren hospitality fire damage? No, actually. Well, it's still fire damaged. They've sent it away to be repaired. They were saying that they might not even get it repaired by the Austrian Grand Prix. So it's going to be a bit of a weird couple of weeks for McLaren. Obviously, the problem is there's not actually too much in the hospitality area. It is basically a glorified camper van for celebrities and sponsorships to go into. Like, it's not really used by the team that much. There is the 2 driver rooms that they usually keep in the hospitality section as well for the teams, but I think the drivers are more than fine to kind of find somewhere else to sit and prepare for the Grand Prix in that way. So I don't think it'll affect the team that much, to be honest with you. It's not like if the garage had caught fire, for instance, let's say, and maybe they'd lost like technical equipment or radio communications or something along those lines, then it would have been a much, much bigger deal. But yeah, the hospitality area, small electrical fire, all dealt with, sent off to be repaired. I think it'll be back and won't really become much of a talking point, to be honest with you. Is watching Drive to Survive actually good, or the actual race? I mean, both, right? They're both like Drive to Survive is entertaining in its own way. Do they embellish a little bit? Yeah, sure. But that's what to be expected. Like, if you watch any of these sports documentaries, like I'm quite a sports documentary fan. I'll watch various bits and pieces from sports documentaries about basketball, even though I've never watched a basketball game in my life. Or I watched the Tour de France one recently, and though I've never watched the Tour de France, it's one of those things, right? You can get a feel for it in a documentary, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you understand the sport. Like, I would not say I'm a basketball fan. I would not say I understand basketball, but I have watched a good couple of documentaries on basketball just because they are entertaining in their own way, right? So it's a different way of presenting the sport. But I think Drive to Survive is quite good. I think it's entertaining. Does it tell the story? Yes, in its own way. It's embellished slightly. Oh, thank you, NGNO Fan Club, for the super chat. Appreciate that, mate. Is there a little message with it? No message with it. Thank you so much. Yeah, that is another way that you can support super chatting with the channel. $2.99. Very much appreciated. And I can't even see if you've put a message in the chat or anything. But yeah, massively appreciate that, mate. If you do have any questions or various bits and pieces, let me know. Will Leclerc be able to overtake one of the Mercedes? I mean, I hope so. I hope Charles Leclerc will be in the mix, you know. I feel like the battle for the win, it's going to be really tough for Lando Norris. I know that the winner of the Spanish Grand Prix generally does start in pole position, but it's Max Verstappen. It's Max Verstappen in a Red Bull, and as much as, you know, he managed to just about get the better of Max Verstappen in qualifying, getting the better of Max Verstappen in a race is a little bit different. Max Verstappen, when it comes to race pace and race trim, he's just a different beast, different animal. And I think, you know, as much as he does have a lot of pole positions, if you look at Max's pole positions to wins, actually, the wins are massively outweighing that. Whereas you look at somebody like Charles Leclerc, for instance, has the opposite. Lots and lots of pole positions to Charles Leclerc's name, but not necessarily being able to convert that into Sundays and into victories, you know what I mean? And obviously it comes down to the team and the car that you're in, but I do just feel like Max Verstappen is stronger in the races than he is in qualifying. And therefore, it's never over until it's over. It's Max Verstappen. He's starting second place. I'm not counting my chickens as a McLaren fan, effectively. I'm not saying that this is going to be a smooth sail victory for Lando Norris. I do think this is going to be hard fought. And I do think the Mercedes are right in there. The Ferraris are right in there. Anybody in that top six, for me, could win this Grand Prix. And I wouldn't be like incredibly stunned. You know what I mean? Pierre Gasly wins this Grand Prix, I'd be like, what on earth has happened? Surely there's some kind of problem or mistake. But if anybody in the top six wins, I think that is fairly reasonable. I think that's where we are now in Formula One. I think on tracks like Spain, where it has a mix of everything, there is some slow speed, there is some high speed, there's a good length straight in there as well. It's those tracks where you see like the Mercedes has parts where it's quicker, the Ferrari has parts where it's quicker, and it could be those tiny little details, a safety car at the right time, a red flag at a certain portion of the track, like anything could change the direction of this Grand Prix. Questions, where am I from? Norwich, if you know where that is. And what season is that shirt from? Because I have the same one. Ooh, 2022? I don't think it's last season. Maybe the season before. Maybe even 2021. Something along those lines. It's been since I started the channel. So within the last 3 seasons. Lord Latifi streams if you don't have a subscription. Is that a thing? Nicholas Latifi has his own streaming platform now. What is Nicholas Latifi up to? Last time I saw him, he was like going to some university to do something or other. Shall we? I've completely gone off tangent. Shall we have a look at some predictions that you guys have put in? Because we haven't done that yet. And I've just realised. 10 minutes to go, getting a few radio messages in from the drivers. Always steak Sauber. Like, look at this. Always steak. They always just, like, they're on the radio. What is that? 60 minutes before the Grand Prix. 60 minutes. They're on the radio telling Joe. Just a little countdown for you. 60 minutes to go. Do I reply to all the comments on my videos? I try my absolute best, but I'll be honest with you, I do have a 9-to-5 job during the week. Like, it's quite tricky. There's a lot of comments and various bits and pieces that do come through. I do try and answer as many comments as physically possible, though. But as you can see, if you really want to ask me a question, here's the place to do it, because I'm trapped here right now. There's nothing I can do. I'm gonna be here for the next couple of hours. There's nothing I can do about that. So if you want to ask me something, now's probably the best time. What's my favourite football team? I'm a Liverpool fan, but obviously I live in Norwich, near the Norwich Stadium as well. So Norwich I also kind of follow, enjoy. Some people just like using the radios. It does seem that. Steak Sauber, Joe Guan Yu in particular, he's on the radio quite a lot. Like, I know I've got the radio messages on the race board when we get into it a little bit later on. Like, keep an eye on the radios. Joe Guan Yu's on there quite a bit. Loves a little chat to his engineer, does Joe Guan Yu. But let's have a little look at some of your predictions then. So for you guys that don't know, over on the community tab, which is also an amazing place to get involved because there's so much good chat over on the community tab as well. So if you click the link to the channel, obviously subscribe to it as well. But next to the videos, next to the live streams, there's the community tab. And my goodness me, some of the debates that we have over there is just a really, really fun place to be. But I do put out on the Wednesday before the Grand Prix a little get your predictions in, early predictions, before we've seen a free practice, before we've seen qualifying. Get your predictions in, see what we've got. Windows said Max Verstappen, Hamilton, Perez as their podium. I would be very surprised if Sergio Perez does that now. But obviously got that in a few days ago. Nico Hülkenberg in the top 10 as his surprise finish. I feel like that's a very exciting one indeed. Vettel, Ronaldo. That is 2 very different goats of very different sports. But podium, Verstappen, Leclerc, Norris. I'd take that. Would I take a 3rd place finish for Lando Norris today? Maybe swap Lando and Leclerc and I'll take it from you. Best team, Ferrari. Surprise. 5th place by Gasly. Wow. He predicted the absolute run-up of the Alpine team. Very well done, Vettel. Looking like that might come. 5th place, maybe not, but at least a points finish for Gasly on the cards, most definitely. Sick Life Colorado says Verstappen, Norris, Sainz, with the winner being Carlos Sainz. So actually the other way around. Sainz, Norris, Verstappen. Verstappen P3 does not happen very often. If he doesn't win, he's usually second place as Max Verstappen. Verstappen, Leclerc, Piastri as a podium. Marismo. Perez at least in the top 6. Ooh, 7th place is maybe on, but not sure about top 6. Let's have an unrealistic prediction. Carlos Sainz, Lando Norris, Alex Albon on the podium. Starting from the pit lane. Maybe if there's a red flag, safety cars, bit of chaos. Maybe if there's just a huge clash at turn 1. Obviously, the fact that he's starting from the pit lane, he won't be involved in that huge collision. Maybe that opens the door for him. Roy Boy says, Ricciardo, Yuki, Verstappen all to have good races. I mean, Verstappen looking likely. Ricciardo, Yuki, less so now, unfortunately, after qualifying. It's going to be a podium with Norris P2 or Verstappen P2. So Galaxy straight in there. Got it in just before qualifying as well. I think you're right. Then it could go either way. Russell P3. Ooh, okay. Gone Russell over Hamilton. Could definitely do it. But they are some of your predictions. Lovely to get them involved. And if you want to get involved in the predictions next time around, there will be one for the Austrian Grand Prix weekend. We will be live for 3 days in a row for the Austrian Grand Prix weekend. We've got the qualifying, the sprint race, sprint qualifying on the Friday, the sprint race and qualifying on the Saturday, and then we'll be live for the Grand Prix once again. So make sure that you are subscribed to the channel, make sure you're involved, and we'll be live for all 4 of those sessions after this Spanish Grand Prix is done and dusted. Split screening, I feel like that's the best way to be. I'm split screening as well. Got you guys over here, Grand Prix over there. See how it gets going. You sound like Max Fosh. I do get Max Fosh quite a lot. I think it's just because we're both British and we both wear glasses. But yeah, I get Max Fosh quite a bit. Have faith in Charles Leclerc. I hate sprints. Versatile. Yeah, I think the sprints are a bit 50-50. Oh, Lewis Hamilton starting on a used set of medium tyres. I know that we're expecting kind of maybe even a 3-stop strategy in this race. I think it's going to be a 2-stop for the majority of drivers, unless there's, you know, safety cars and shenanigans like that. I do think it'll end up being a 2-stop for the majority. But Lewis Hamilton... Oh, no, it's changed. Lewis Hamilton did have a set of medium tyres on, but now switched over to a used set of softs. So Lando Norris with a fresh set of softs for the start of the Grand Prix. Verstappen, Hamilton, Russell, all using a slightly scrubbed set. So they've got 3 laps on them. So they'd have been a qualifying set of soft compound tyres as well. So need to be careful off the start line, those 3 there. Charles Leclerc with a fresh set of softs. Sainz with a fresh set of softs. Gasly and Ocon, of course, having to use scrubbed sets. Probably weren't expecting to get through to Q3, so scrubbed sets for them. Piastri with a scrubbed set as well. Fernando Alonso, of course, has a fresh set of softs after not making it through into Q3. Perez, slightly scrubbed set of softs for him. And then it's fresh sets of softs all the way down to Alex Albon, who's starting on the medium tyre. So it is the soft compound tyre, generally for everybody. I don't know, though. I feel like maybe people will go for a 3-stop strategy. It's definitely been talked about. It's been discussed. The 3-stop strategy is available. I do think it will be a 2-stop, though. I just think the 2-stop works generally better at a place like Spain. Unless, of course, as I said, there is a safety car or something along those lines. Hamilton on mediums. It did look like that, but now the graphic has changed its mind. Maybe a little bit of a run over from something else. Can I be honest? CF Racing looks like Charles Leclerc. I mean, he'll absolutely love that. He is a big Charles Leclerc fan. If you've ever seen any of his videos where he's actually on screen, he has like a Charles Leclerc LED light behind him, a Charles Leclerc helmet behind him as well. Oh, somebody asked about this helmet, actually. That is my dad's old racing helmet. So my dad races or goes for track days and races motorbikes. That is one of his old helmets. For somebody who was asking. That's why it's not like a Formula 1 design or anything like that. It's just, I don't know where he got it from. He had it designed himself and now has a new helmet. So I got the old one. So it's up on there. Will you count down the 5 red lights? Of course, of course, of course. We are getting ready to go. We've got about a minute before we get underway. Looking at drivers just taking to the track, getting themselves set up. Lando Norris and Max Verstappen getting underway. So let's get some bits and pieces set up behind the scenes just quickly. Oh, it's quite a quick formation lap, but we are underway for that formation lap now. We are going to see Lando Norris run away at the start of it. And let's just get that sorted, load that up. Lovely stuff. And as I said, 19 cars on the grid ready to go. And Alex Albon starting from the pit lane. Lando Norris and Max Verstappen actually disappearing up the road a little bit. The Mercedes letting the two escape up the road a touch. Collab with Max Fosh. I'm not sure he knows who I am, if I'm honest with you. Nor do I know if he's a Formula One fan, to be honest. But maybe along the lines, one day. Never say never to anything like that. Never thought I'd work with like Tomo or Aldas or anyone like that. But been on the Last Lap podcast now. Been involved in various bits and pieces with those guys. So you never, ever know. Max Verstappen just kind of looking at the rear end of Lando Norris. You can already tell that he's going to make a move down into turn 1, can't you? Just has that racing ability inside of his bones, does Max Verstappen. Cannot help himself. That even on the formation lap, you can see just starting to play little bits of mind games where he can. Lando Norris coming around the final corner and will get himself set up on the starting line. Let's move over to our slightly more detailed board then. You can see Lando Norris actually slowing down a good chunk as he goes down the pit lane. Sorry, we're down the pit straight, not the pit lane. Verstappen, Hamilton, Russell joining him, Leclerc. You can see the cars just starting to bunch up a touch. Logan Sargent will be the last man to take his spot on the grid. Lando Norris stationary then. Just seeing the Ferraris taking their grid spots. So still sort of 30 seconds or so until we see everybody coming around the final couple of corners. Zhou Guanyu going very slowly around the last corner. The RBs of Yuki Tsunoda and Daniel Ricciardo getting side by side already. Logan Sargent, though, the driver at the back of the pack. 4 more cars to take their positions. There's Kevin Magnussen slotting in. Tsunoda and Ricciardo side by side. And Logan Sargent coming to a stop. There's the green flag waved then. And the 5 red lights turn on. And 5 red lights turn off. And we get underway here in Spain. And straight away, Lando Norris comes across to the right-hand side of the track, trying to block off Max Verstappen from going up the inside of turn 1. But Max Verstappen's going to have a little go. Lewis Hamilton, a poor start from him. George Russell around the outside. And Russell carries that speed all the way through to turn 2 and takes the lead of the Grand Prix. Lando Norris down into 3rd. Hamilton and Leclerc battling with one another side by side. Hamilton just keeps the edge. Gasly and Ocon also battling with Piastri. Piastri's been able to jump in front of one of the Alpines. It's Esteban Ocon dropping down into 9th. Sergio Perez also up into the top 10. Yuki Tsunoda with an absolutely blistering start up into 15th place. And Nico Hülkenberg also getting the best of Fernando Alonso. Alonso having a pretty poor start in the Aston Martin. Hülkenberg then also jumping in front of Sergio Perez as those two were battling it out. Fernando Alonso now down into 12th and Hülkenberg up into the points, but it was George Russell with a lightning start at the beginning of this Grand Prix. And George Russell just round the outside at turn 1 made it look easy. Valtteri Bottas also now having a little tussle with Lance Stroll. Lance Stroll able to get his Aston Martin in front of the Kick Sauber. But Bottas is going to try and come back at him. And the door then closed by Lance Stroll. Takes 13th place. My goodness me, George Russell. What a beginning to this Grand Prix it was from him. Need to see an onboard of that where we can later on. Max Verstappen then second place. Lando Norris dropping into third. Hamilton in fourth. Leclerc and Sainz in the two Ferraris still side by side. Here's Daniel Ricciardo having a little look at Logan Sargent and gets past the Williams up into 19th place. Alex Albon just joining the back of the pack and will catch up to the back of Logan Sargent fairly swiftly as the guys are tussling around in front of him. DRS now enabled, of course. We've got Lando Norris really struggling at the beginning of this Grand Prix, though. Has dropped outside of DRS range of Max Verstappen already. Russell, though, will be under threat from Verstappen. Verstappen managed to maintain that second place position. Russell came around the outside and took first, but Lando Norris dropping back a couple of positions. And it did feel like Lando Norris was kind of focusing on Max Verstappen a little bit too much, made it very difficult for Max Verstappen to get in front, but then also made it very easy for the Mercedes of George Russell to sweep around the outside. And now on the second lap in Spain, we have a little bit more of a settled 20. It is Russell, Verstappen, Norris in the podium places. Hamilton in fourth place. The two Ferraris still in fifth and sixth. Oh, might be our best opportunity now, Max. So Red Bull giving Russell... Oh my goodness me, it's going to be side by side through turn one, and Max Verstappen around the outside gets into turn two and takes the lead of the Grand Prix. GP on the radio giving him the go-ahead, and Max Verstappen never says no to an opportunity of taking the race lead. He gets into first place in front of George Russell then. And Russell now down into second. Norris still in third, under pressure from Lewis Hamilton, but was able to keep the Mercedes at arm's length. And the Ferraris just settling into fifth and sixth behind. Pierre Gasly has been able to hold on to seventh place position. Piastri was able to jump in front of one of the Alpines, and now struggling behind the other one. Ocon in ninth place, and Nico Hülkenberg, as he has done many times this season, jumping up into the point scoring places. Can he hold on to it, though? It's Nico Hülkenberg finishing in the points is where Haas have been really struggling, but they've managed to get in there quite a few times. The cars are heavy with fuel. Yeah, right at the beginning of the Grand Prix still. This is the heaviest they will be, the slowest they will be throughout the Grand Prix. And on the soft compound tyres as well. Everybody opting for the soft compound tyre. Usually you get a little bit of a mix, but Max Verstappen edging away from George Russell. Gets himself the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, and Russell outside of DRS range as well as they come down the pit straight. Wow. Max Verstappen, an insane move into turn one and turn two. Charles Leclerc closed on me. Carlos Sainz. Interesting. Charles Leclerc not happy with the movement of Carlos Sainz. The Ferraris look like they're being able to race one another. Here's Carlos Sainz ahead of Charles Leclerc, I should have said, when we were talking about them. So Charles Leclerc wanting to get back in front of his teammate, within DRS range of his teammate, but Carlos Sainz closing the door on any opportunities that they have. Hey, Mallory, how you doing? Here, just in the background. No worries at all. More Dutch national anthem. Does feel like it's on the way, doesn't it? George Russell now outside of DRS range. Ooh. Carlos Sainz on the radio, also complaining about possibly even a little bit of a touch between the two Ferraris. I didn't see that myself, but if we get to see a little bit of a replay, possibly Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz coming to blows. Charles Leclerc having a look at Carlos Sainz down towards turn one, and Carlos Sainz closes off very, very quickly. How many laps is this Grand Prix? 66 laps. If you look in the top left corner of the screen, 5 out of 66 completed. Well, we're on lap 5 of 66, so 62 left to go. Here's a little replay of the race start then. So Hamilton with a really poor getaway. George Russell, to be fair to him, absolutely lightning off of it. Verstappen gets onto the grass, and Lando Norris still focusing wholly on Max Verstappen. But Max Verstappen has the inside line, gets in front of Norris, but yeah, just allows that gap. And George Russell sweeps around the outside of both of them. It's a very, very good launch from George Russell. Yeah. Norris not really leaving the gap for Max Verstappen. And Verstappen saying, I got pushed onto the grass. He was indeed pushed onto the grass, but still managed to make the position count. Here's where it is. George Russell's on board. So you can see just a lightning start, not ridiculously quick in comparison to the front two. There's still a considerable gap. But then when Max Verstappen gets onto the grass and Lando Norris, I think, is only looking to the right-hand side where Max Verstappen is, George Russell just sees that gap open up on the left-hand side of the track, swoops into that gap, round the outside, takes the revenge, and takes a pole position, at least for a lap. Obviously, Max Verstappen has now taken the lead of the Grand Prix on the second lap since. Ooh, and that was where Fernando Alonso lost his positions. Went very wide through turn one and ended up behind Sergio Perez. This is a replay of Max Verstappen getting the move done on George Russell. George Russell peels to the inside and Max Verstappen says, okay, I'll take the outside line. I'll take the inside route of turn two. Gets that move done in the Red Bull. Here's the Ferraris. Do they actually touch then? So Carlos Sainz sweeping around. Oh, maybe, yeah, just a little touch there between Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc. That's under investigation, actually. Carlos Sainz leaving the track and gaining an advantage. I mean, Carlos is already almost 100% ahead of Charles Leclerc. It is the front left wheel and the rear right wheel of Carlos Sainz that come to touch in the Ferrari battle down into turn one. But let's rejoin the race as it is. And in fact, I've got a brand new little race trace. Does that make any sense? That looks way too small, doesn't it? Got a brand new little tool to have a little look at. That is the gaps between the drivers, and you can see Max Verstappen just elongating that lead. Well, maybe we'll try that out in a slightly different way a little bit later on. Didn't know how big that was going to be because I couldn't foresee it until the race had started. Our best bet is a safety car. Logan, do your thing. Seems a little bit hard. Ocon go smash. No, he's not next to Pierre Gasly anymore. Ocon with Piastri in between him and his teammate. Hit that like button. Thank you, Kobe. And yes, please do. If you are new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button as well. Massively helps out the channel. And if you want to have a little Formula 1 video in the background, I've got a good few linked down in the description as well. Just open that up in another tab. Maybe have that running. That'd be lovely. Valtteri Bottas. Is this the overtake on Fernando Alonso? Yes, it is. Goes to the left-hand side of the track. Has DRS, and Fernando Alonso looks like it is standing still. Valtteri Bottas swoops past Fernando Alonso without even trying, and Fernando Alonso having an absolutely torrid time. Is there a little bit of damage to that Aston Martin, maybe? Just feels like he's falling away, especially considering Lance Stroll is ahead in 12th place, and doesn't look like the overtake is there for him. Just confirm pushing level. George Russell pushing very hard, apparently, although still 2 seconds off the lead of Max Verstappen. Lando Norris now within touching distance of George Russell. Will at least get DRS coming through these DRS detection zones if he stays within that second. Lewis Hamilton, though, has been within DRS range of Lando Norris since the start of the Grand Prix, but just hasn't been able to actually close to within an actual attacking distance. Similar for Charles Leclerc. Charles Leclerc looking like he wants to have a go at Carlos Sainz every single lap, but just hasn't quite got it. Is Lando in DRS range? He is indeed. So if you look on the left-hand side of the screen next to Lando Norris, where it says his last lap time, and then it says the gap to the car in front. So the gap to the car in front is less than a second, then he has DRS available to him. And then you can also see the gap to the leader as well. So Max Verstappen, 2 seconds ahead of George Russell, nearly 3 seconds ahead of Lando Norris, 3.5 seconds ahead of Hamilton. You can see the gaps between them. You can see 27 seconds ahead of Logan Sargent, who is now at the back of the pack. Alex Albon, starting from the pit lane, has overtaken his teammate on the medium compound tyre as well, Alex Albon. So it'll be interesting to see what strategy he goes for. Why are their tyres? Oh, 10 laps in. Yeah, Lando's only 6. They started on a scrubbed set. So Lando Norris had a fresh set of soft compound tyres, whereas Verstappen, Russell, Hamilton, Gasly, Piastri, Ocon all started on a slightly used set that they would have used in qualifying yesterday. Lando Norris continuing to close that gap, but it's just a little bit at a time. Now within 0.6 of George Russell. And here's Oscar Piastri, talking of McLarens, having a little battle with Pierre Gasly, not able to get past him this time at turn 1, but Piastri trying to follow the Alpine as closely as possible. Yuki Tsunoda and Zhou Guanyu are into the pits as well, a little bit early. Expect him, maybe 15 or 16 laps before people started to come in, but Zhou, Tsunoda, maybe just swapping around their strategy a touch, deciding on something a little bit different. Possibly that 3-stop. Of course, a few teams were discussing need to be an absolutely electric stint from them if they're going to go for that 3-stop. We'll keep a little eye on Zhou Guanyu and Yuki Tsunoda's pace. They're both coming around turn 3 together right now. But Lando Norris closing in. Oscar Piastri as well as the driver there, because Pierre Gasly is 3 seconds off the back of the Ferraris and needs to get past now Oscar Piastri. Otherwise, he's just going to fall away from that top 6. And you need to be within that mix if you're in a McLaren car at this point in the season. Especially if they are going to try and at least close the gap to Ferrari in terms of the Constructors' Championship. And also keep themselves ahead of Mercedes. Looking at George Russell in 2nd, Hamilton in 4th. The Constructors' Championship is nowhere near done and dusted for this season, especially because it does feel like Red Bull are fighting with one arm behind their back. Sergio Perez still running outside of the points in his Red Bull. Oh, and Kevin Magnussen into the pits as well. Slow stop from Kevin Magnussen as well. Trying the undercut on Fernando Alonso is Kevin Magnussen. I see. Fresh rubber, Kevin Magnussen on the medium compound tyre. Fresh set of medium compound tyres as well. Could very much go for an overtake here. Just looking at Fernando Alonso's pace in comparison to the Haas, so keep an eye on that. Fernando Alonso fans. Lando Norris, though, has DRS still to George Russell ahead, but just can't quite get there. Oscar Piastri has actually dropped outside of DRS range. Oh, what's happened to Fernando? Oh, a little dip in the gravel for Fernando Alonso. Aston Martin just does not seem right, does it? Fernando Alonso really out of sorts this weekend. Bottas comes into the pits trying to cover off Zhou and Tsunoda in that battle. And Sergio Perez has moved in front of Nico Hülkenberg. Don't know what happened there. Didn't get to see the overtake as it happened. Kevin Magnussen and Yuki Tsunoda are also causing a little bit of a headache for one another. Zhou Guanyu has managed to get out in front of his teammate, though. So it does look like the undercut is the way to go. Zhou Guanyu putting in some very solid lap times and getting ahead of Valtteri Bottas in that mix. 2 seconds ahead. So if he can have a gap, just looking, if Lando Norris pitted now, where would he come out? He would come out around Stroll and Alonso, and it'd be tricky, wouldn't it? There's not quite a gap there. I think it may be better off going early. Obviously, it leaves you a little bit exposed towards the end of that stint. But I think what we're seeing now is the undercut is so valuable. And actually keeping track position, like Gasly in front of Piastri, for instance. Piastri is in a much, much quicker car, but overtaking is a little bit more difficult than we were expecting here this weekend. Sergio Perez, there is the replay of his move on Nico Hülkenberg, and DRS open. Red Bull higher speed. Oh, Verstappen had a little bit of a moment in turn 7, did Max Verstappen. Almost dipped his tyres into the gravel. And the Red Bull, maybe not as obvious a winner as we expected. Lando Norris still a second behind George Russell. And I think everybody now looking at the gaps, like Nico Hülkenberg has come into the pits and is putting in some very quick sector times. I think Lando Norris has to come in, doesn't he? For me anyway. I think if I'm McLaren, I want to get him out because I just think Lando Norris is so quick around here. I mean, we saw it. Oh, here comes Sergio Perez and Esteban Ocon into the pits as well. So they are reacting to the cars towards the back end of the pack, all pitting. So Ocon and Perez coming in. Ocon still ahead of Sergio Perez. Just about. The Alpine comes out of the pits. And we're seeing Logan Sargent just making his way past. Sergio Perez stays in front of Nico Hülkenberg. So Perez reacts. Bottas has been allowed to overtake Zhou Guanyu. That looked like a little bit of a team strategy there, letting Valtteri Bottas go past. He's on the softer compound tyre. Lando Norris saying on the radio, yep, let's do something. So even Lando Norris wanting to pit and maybe get a little bit of a run. I think the thing is, where would he come out now? Lando Norris 20 seconds. Where are we looking at? 25. I think it's still the problem is the Aston Martins, isn't it? If Stroll and Alonso pit, it opens up a really lovely gap for Lando Norris. Gasly comes into the pits now for Alpine. That releases Oscar Piastri. Let's see what Oscar Piastri's times are like now that he is not stuck behind the Alpine of Pierre. Oh, and it's a really slow stop. A really, really slow stop. A problem with the rear right tyre for Pierre Gasly. That might cost him. Where's his teammate? Esteban Ocon is coming down the pit lane. Oh my God, they're going to be side by side. This is not what you want to see if you're an Alpine fan. And no, Ocon actually gets away from him. So that stop for Gasly has cost him position. And now he is behind his teammate, Esteban Ocon. On fresher tyres, though, that'll be interesting if Alpine ask those two to swap positions. Not sure how well that will go down, if I'm honest with you, at the Alpine team. George Russell, box. So Russell going for it earlier. And will Russell actually come out in front of the two Aston Martins? Yes, probably just about. So yeah, Russell going for it. And now Norris has a little bit of a 50-50 in his hands. Oh my goodness me. George Russell slams on the brakes. He comes into the pit. Smoke comes from the front left tyre, using absolutely every millimetre of track that he's allowed to. Oh, and it's a slow stop for Russell as well. What's happening with the rear rights of these tyres? Oh, and the Ferrari tries to get out in front of Russell. Doesn't quite, but Carlos Sainz almost manages to get the best of George Russell. Russell with a 5.3 second stop, and Carlos Sainz is right under the rear end of George Russell. They're going to be battling through this first lap. Carlos Sainz, if he can keep within touching distance, is going to have a little battle on his hands with George Russell, but a poor stop from them, unfortunately. Alex Albon is also swapping around positions with Esteban Ocon, now making his way back through that rear end of the pack. Daniel Ricciardo has continued on as well. So Carlos Sainz pitted. We're now looking at the top 7 runners have yet to have pitted. Daniel Ricciardo and Alex Albon also in there, but Alex Albon on the mediums and going longer. Gasly also gets past the Williams of Alex Albon, and Unfortunately, Alex Albon looks a little bit of a sitting duck to the cars that are on fresher tyres. Hamilton now needs to react, in my opinion, or is he going to keep going? No, continues. No, does come in. Hamilton does react. I thought that might be the case. Hamilton into the pits then. Can he get the better of his teammate here? Russell with a slow stop. Can it be a good stop for Hamilton? Much quicker than his teammates. A 2.3-second stop for Lewis Hamilton. So he's gained 3 seconds on his teammate there. Russell also has come out in between Lance Stroll and Fernando Alonso. That was the thing I was worried about with Lando Norris. But Lewis Hamilton doesn't seem to have been able to gain too much of an advantage. And actually, it's Carlos Sainz who's been the real winner there. Carlos Sainz now ahead of Lewis Hamilton. That shows you just how good this undercut has been. Fernando Alonso still in the mix. Ooh, Lando Norris. Do you want to cover George Russell? No. So Lando Norris continues on the soft compound tyre. Let's have a little look. Lando Norris on a 120.4. George Russell, hasn't set a lap time because obviously that was the pit stop lap. I thought he'd done 2 laps since he pitted, but it's only 1. We'll see what Lando Norris's lap time is like compared to George Russell this time around. Although, having said that, Max Verstappen, box. And it does just feel like the undercut is the way forward. It feels like McLaren might be making a mistake here with Lando Norris. Leaving him out, leaving him vulnerable. Medium compound tyres go on Max Verstappen's car. Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc will make their way past Oscar Piastri also. Max Verstappen will come out in 4th place and in a lovely gap as well. You can see George Russell just coming around the final corner, but Max Verstappen's going to make his way down towards turn 1 and have a lovely 6.5-second gap to Oscar Piastri. That is perfect for Red Bull. But Lewis Hamilton looking very racy behind the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz. The man he is replacing next year at Ferrari. Can he replace him in 6th place of this Grand Prix? Hamilton tries to get around the outside at turn 3, but Carlos Sainz just wary enough to it. And Carlos Sainz has gone from possibly getting in front of Russell in the pit stops to actually having to deal with the other Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton lost out during the pit stops to Carlos Sainz. And Lewis Hamilton now looking to gain that position back once again. Lando Norris leads the Grand Prix, but you look at that gap to Max Verstappen is only 16.8 seconds. And it's going to be interesting to see what kind of lap times they do in comparison to one another. Does Lando Norris continue? Yes. So Lando Norris going for a completely different strategy to the rest of the front runners. Verstappen and Russell have already pitted. And actually, Max Verstappen is closing the gap to Lando Norris. Norris getting further away from Piastri, but actually Charles Leclerc also gaining a little bit of time on Lando Norris in the last couple of laps. Carlos Sainz, though, with a headache of his own. Lewis Hamilton peels to the inside at turn 1. Hamilton's going to try and go up the inside. Carlos Sainz, though, a little bit of a touch. And I think a little bit of debris possibly came off of the Ferrari as Hamilton takes the position and back up into 6th place. So both Mercedes back ahead of the Ferraris, or at least until Charles Leclerc pits. But let's have a little look at this. Hamilton then dives up the inside. Carlos Sainz going around the outside. And there is a little bit of a touch and a little bit of debris. I think there is enough space for both cars there. It's very, very close. Oh, no. I think it's a bit of a racing incident. I'm not so sure. It's very difficult to tell who's kind of at fault there. It just looks like both cars both ran out of space, to be honest with you. Hamilton up into 6th spot. Charles Leclerc obviously will pit. Piastri will pit. That'll put Hamilton back in 4th. Was that slow stop for George Russell, but hasn't been punished. George Russell, don't know whether he's going to come out ahead or behind Norris. Norris, 19.6 seconds the gap. Lewis Hamilton's also just set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. Fernando Alonso finally pits in the Aston Martin as well. So it is just Norris, Leclerc, and Piastri going for something a bit different then. Everybody else has stopped. Could be an interesting tactic. Not sure from a McLaren perspective what they're going for. Not the most obvious of tactics, I would say, from the McLaren team at this moment, but I'll trust them for now, at least. Lando Norris's gap to Carlos Sainz is 22.5. So yeah, Lando Norris is like right in the mix. He might even come out between Russell and Hamilton. It's gonna be awkward for Lando Norris. I think that, yeah, I think it's a good point from the commentary team. Lando Norris seems to have his eyes on Max Verstappen. You know, they came on the radio, offered him the opportunity to cover off George Russell, or possibly even overtake George Russell, of course. They came on the radio and said, you know, Lando, we can pit to overtake George Russell. And he was like, no, I want to focus on trying to get to Max. And unfortunately, that might be a problem because Max Verstappen is absolutely rattling around at this point. Max Verstappen, a 119.9 to Lando Norris, 9/10 of a second slower. So nearly a second slower than Max Verstappen on that last lap. Verstappen actually catching up to the back of Piastri. Unless McLaren are hoping that Oscar Piastri will hold up Verstappen. As I say that, Max Verstappen makes his way through. So that's not going to happen either. And Verstappen up into third place. Piastri down into fourth. And I think McLaren are just going to go for a one-stop strategy. I am not sold on it. I'm not sold on it personally, but it could happen. Lando doing one less stop than Max. Does feel like it, yeah. Lando Norris trying to eke out 20 seconds, though. It's a lot of time for Lando Norris. But I don't know. Oh, there comes Oscar Piastri then. So yeah, maybe they were hoping that Oscar Piastri could have held up Max Verstappen for more than sort of a couple of corners. I think was the only sort of time that he really took away from Max Verstappen there. But Oscar Piastri into the pits, and I think Piastri might have lost out considerably here. Interesting that Gasly and Ocon have swapped positions once again. Gasly actually coming down the pit lane, Ocon as well. Perez makes his way past, so Piastri's going to come out behind Sergio Perez, possibly even behind Nico Hülkenberg. There is Hülkenberg. Hülkenberg's going to sweep past. Yeah, so Piastri down in 11th place now. That just hasn't happened, just hasn't worked for the Mercedes team, for the McLaren team there, unfortunately. Piastri now out of the points. Remember, was running behind Pierre Gasly and quite comfortably behind Pierre Gasly before the pit stops. Lando Norris just being told on the radio, just keep going with this tyre delta, because otherwise, if they pit, as they've just said, they've lost position to Verstappen, Russell, Hamilton, Sainz now as well, would be in front of Lando Norris. And McLaren, unless Lando Norris can hold on to these tyres and keep churning in lap times, the problem is Max Verstappen 1.2 seconds quicker than Lando Norris last lap. Like, he is closing that gap at a considerable rate, is Max Verstappen. Let's have a little look. Let me show you this. Let me make it bigger, though. I know that this won't fit or whatever. Let me just show you what I'm looking at so I can explain. So here is Max Verstappen's lap times, right, in comparison to Lando Norris. You can see Max Verstappen pitted, but look how quickly he is rattling up towards Lando Norris. He's just getting closer and closer and closer. Obviously, he took over Oscar Piastri. Then Oscar Piastri pits. Look at Oscar Piastri all the way back here. Is gaining on the cars in front, but just dreadful. Just absolutely abysmal strategy from McLaren, in my opinion. You can see the cars absolutely streaking away from them at the beginning. And here comes Lando Norris. Lando Norris isn't in the position to pit now. He's going to come out between Sainz and Gasly. Of course, he's going to have a little bit of free air. He's going to have a better tyres, but ugh, not sold. Thank you, Captain K, for subscribing to the channel. If you are new here, hit that subscribe button. Be absolutely appreciated. Lando Norris comes out in 6th place. All right, let's have a little look. So Carlos Sainz laps 8 laps. Charles Leclerc, the only driver left to pit, and Charles Leclerc now pitting from the lead of the race. And that's a thing. Charles Leclerc is leading the race, but by 4 seconds to Max Verstappen. Verstappen has absolutely done the right thing, in my opinion, here. I think Max Verstappen has basically guaranteed himself the win there, because I think McLaren have messed up the strategy. Russell with a 5-second stop just opened the door for Max Verstappen. Verstappen, his pit stop was perfect. Pitted at just the right time. Came out in a lovely bit of free air. Made light work of getting past Oscar Piastri. I think, unfortunately, this is just another reminder that even though Red Bull, in terms of race pace and in terms of qualifying pace, the rest are catching up, Red Bull still just have a little bit of an edge when it comes to strategy, when it comes to pit stops, when it comes to the tiny nuances that can be the difference. Red Bull, for me, just seem to be able to keep that edge. And Red Bull just seem to be able to continue that domination, right? They dominate where it counts. They dominate in the marginal areas where even when the racing is close, Max Verstappen is an exceptional driver. The pit stop is just at the right time. The pit stop is perfectly executed. And that's the thing that Red Bull still have over the rest of the field, in my opinion. Charles Leclerc does pit then, and now that is everybody having stopped once. And Charles Leclerc has come out behind Pierre Gasly. Wow. And Carlos Sainz not very happy about that incident with Lewis Hamilton still. Carlos Sainz 2.5 seconds off the back of Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton now running in 3rd place. And Lando Norris needs to make this tyre delta count, because it's only 8 laps fresher, only 6 laps fresher than Max Verstappen. He lost so much time. Let's have a little look. I'm sorry, this is my new tool. This is my new thing for this weekend, and I feel like I'm just going to use it a lot. So let's have a little look at Lando Norris's delta times, because he is gaining on Carlos Sainz here. I need to see what the gap was. Alright, so Lando Norris, to be fair, he's gaining on Max Verstappen too. Came out, was kind of 10.5, 11 seconds behind. He's gaining on Max Verstappen, but now has the traffic. This is where I think it's going to cost Lando, because he's now got to get past Carlos Sainz. He's got to get past Lewis Hamilton to get back to where he was. And we've seen that overtaking he's so tricky here. I'm not sure. Anyway, I might incorporate that a little bit. Sort of thing that feels like luck. What was that? Sub to my OP. My OP. My OF? No, I don't have one of those. Why is Perez still in Red Bull? Great question. Unfortunately, I don't have the answers to that one. I wish that I did. I do like it, the little telemetry tool. And I do need to say thank you to Multiviewer. Haven't shouted them out yet. Multiviewer provide all of the data that you see in front of you, all of the different layouts and screens that we have in front of us. They're all provided by Multiviewer. So they are absolutely doing God's work for us. Let's see if we can get this to actually kind of sit in a reasonable place. I know that this is very annoying and kind of the inside baseball of everything, but it would be nice if we could get this to sit somewhere nicely, right? Maybe if we do something like this, a little bit off the side. Give me 5 seconds. We're all friends. Something like that. Something like that. You can see the telemetries like this. Does that still come up? Yeah, maybe something like that. You can see Lando Norris now ahead of Carlos Sainz and closing in, but having to close in considerably to Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton and Norris actually looking like they're going to be within touching distance in a couple of laps. So Lando Norris with the tyre delta is using it. You know what I mean? Like he's going for it. Thanks for subscribing, Samir, sorry. Samir. Lando Norris 1.4 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton. Fastest lap for Lando Norris as well in his favour. Closing the gap, though Max Verstappen still 6.3 seconds ahead of George Russell, and you'd imagine just probably holding on to a little bit more of it. How is the weather? Looking fairly sunny, although never know in Spain. Obviously, could rain at any point. Luck in the sense that decision making, data analysis, so subtle. Yeah, of course. Please keep the graph. Love seeing the live graph. Problem is, I can't have everything on the screen. Can't have everything on the screen, so we have to make decisions. But the graph is new, and I didn't know what the graph was going to look like until the race started because there was no preview of it. Which app can you see this telemetry? That is Multiviewer, who support the stream and give us all of this telemetry and data that we look at every single stream. Head over to Multiviewer. You can download their app and you can see all the graphs, all the data, everything that you want, all for yourself. They are massively, massively helpful in supporting the channel and are undoubtedly one of the best people that we've got on board since starting. Max Verstappen, 9.3 seconds the gap to Lando Norris. That's close by a couple of seconds. Maybe I was a little bit pessimistic of Lando Norris's strategy. But it does still feel like there's a long way to go for Lando Norris to really be in the mix. Verstappen on the radio. Tyres are very inconsistent, says Max Verstappen. Do I predict another Max Verstappen win? It does feel like that was the case. But Lando Norris is looking like maybe I'll be proved wrong by McLaren. Maybe they have just done enough in terms of that tyre delta that he'll be able to continue to push. Because at this moment in time, Lando Norris now closing to within touching distance of Lewis Hamilton. Needs to get within DRS range. Actually is within DRS range in terms of the straight. Was just within that second then at the DRS detection zone. Because had DRS down the straight and now gets himself properly within that DRS zone as well. Oscar Piastri has also made a move on Esteban Ocon. So Piastri now up into 8th place. And the McLaren on the fresher tyres. We have seen, actually, the McLaren on the mediums is a little bit quicker than we expect. Like, they do seem to like the medium compound tyre more than any other tyre. But Max Verstappen still leading by 7 seconds. Russell in 2nd place. Hamilton 3rd. Norris within DRS range now, though, of those podium places and getting back to where he started before the pit stops. Carlos Sainz in 5th. Charles Leclerc in 6th. And both Ferraris struggling at this point. Sainz possibly with a little bit of damage to the floor after a collision with Lewis Hamilton. Charles Leclerc also possibly carrying damage from that collision with Carlos Sainz at the beginning. And both Ferraris looking nowhere near the pace of the Mercedes or the McLaren in front. Gasly has done so well to hold on to 7th place. Looking like Oscar Piastri will close the gap to Pierre Gasly. 3 seconds the gap at this moment in time. But Piastri just getting closer and closer to Gasly because Piastri is lapping at a very similar time to Max Verstappen, whereas Gasly kind of falling away from the lead. So Piastri is going to catch fairly swiftly. Sergio Perez also making moves, getting past Ocon and up into 9th place. Be interesting to see what his pace is like. No, Sergio Perez's pace actually off of Piastri's pace. So that gap is just going to increase between Piastri and Perez. Ocon, though, holding on to the final point scoring place with Hülkenberg behind in 11th. And Hülkenberg lapping at a similar pace to Esteban Ocon. So Looking like Ocon might about just hold on to that 10th place. But let's get back to the action side of things. Lando Norris is close to within half a second of Lewis Hamilton. DRS open on the back straight just allows you to close in with a real overtaking opportunity down in towards turn 1. And we'll see if Lando Norris goes for it this time around, just sweeping through turns 11 and 12, 13 and 14 coming up before that straight, and whether or not Lando Norris will go for it this time around does seem like he's going for it, using the energy, the battery that he's stored up for the last few laps. Of course, Hamilton has that to try and defend. DRS open for Lando Norris, though. Down towards turn 1. Is Lewis Hamilton going to put up much of a fight? Not really. Lewis Hamilton realizes that Lando Norris just has the advantage and is in the faster car. And Lando Norris swoops past into 3rd place without too much of a struggle from Lewis Hamilton, to be honest with you. Lewis Hamilton possibly realizing that this isn't where the battle is now. I'm going to have to wait until I'm on that next set of tyres. Looking like it is going to be a 2-stop for the majority of cars. Sergio Perez already has stopped twice there. Maybe a 3-stop for Sergio Perez. Please, Max, please get an engine failure. Jesus. It's not over yet. Lando Norris is putting in some blistering lap times. And even with overtaking Lewis Hamilton on that last lap, still was able to be within touching distance of Max Verstappen's lap times. He is closing in, is Lando Norris. Just unfortunately, going to be a long time before we see Lando Norris and Max Verstappen have a battle. Although, Lando Norris might actually gain here. This is where the battle was. So Lando Norris was stuck behind George Russell for a considerable chunk of the opening start of this race, of the opening few laps of this race. And here is where he might be able to actually get that position back. Lando Norris then 1 second behind George Russell. Wasn't quite within DRS range that time around. But Lando Norris looking like he will close that gap. Carlos Sainz also, I've just realised, is being closed in by Charles Leclerc. Leclerc did pit later than his teammate. Leclerc on much, much fresher medium tyres. We've seen the Ferraris already touch here today. It does make you wonder whether Carlos Sainz is going to oblige and let Charles Leclerc past if that does come to it, because Charles Leclerc closing in on Carlos Sainz substantially on the last lap. 0.6 of a second taken out of the Spaniard's 5th place lead. Yeah, Gasly running in 7th place still. Very impressive, keeping Oscar Piastri at bay. And Oscar Piastri is kind of back where he started as well. The McLarens managed to do quite a good job in the strategy department. I'll hold my hands up, got it completely wrong. I thought they'd gone too long on that set of tyres, but actually now they're on the mediums. They've really come to life, have the McLaren pair. Piastri closing in on Gasly, who he was stuck behind in the first stint. Lando Norris closing in on George Russell, who he was stuck behind in a similar margin. Here we go then, Lando Norris, DRS open this time around. And this is the lap I feel like he'll try and close in to Russell. He'll use that DRS down the back straight. Does. Then gets the DRS down the back straight as well. We'll just try and close in where possible. Max Verstappen has stepped up the pace, though, a little bit. Here's Oscar Piastri. He's going to go for a move on Pierre Gasly down in towards turn 1. Gets up the inside, and the Australian takes 7th place. And now Oscar Piastri has unleashed the gap. 11 seconds to Charles Leclerc ahead, though. So, going to be a very long afternoon for Pierre Gasly. I thought Oscar Piastri, kind of all by himself, you'd imagine. 11.5 seconds is a hell of a gap to try and make up. Checo is out of the points. Yeah, running in 13th place is Sergio Perez. A second pit stop for the Mexican has put him in the mix with Lance Stroll. Zhou Guanyu ahead of him as well. Doesn't look like good reading for Sergio Perez, and Red Bull fighting with one hand behind their back once again this weekend. Here is Lando Norris, though, the man I've been keeping my eye on. We'll have DRS down towards turn 1. Will George Russell put up a bit more of a fight than Lewis Hamilton did? Yes. Covers off Russell to the inside. And Russell keeps that place ahead of Lando Norris. No, Lando Norris, though, going through turn 2 and turn 3. Decides that around the outside of turn 3 is where he's going to make it count, and does. George Russell, though, is going to try and come back at Lando Norris. He's going to go around the outside of turn 4 and turn 5. They are side by side once again. Lando Norris, though, is going to try and get it. And George Russell makes that move stick. But Lando Norris is going to come up the inside once again. They're side by side once more. Lando Norris dips a tyre onto the grass. And Norris finally gets that move done through turn 7. They were side by side all the way from turn 2 to turn 7 there. Wonderful racing from Lando Norris and George Russell. Exactly what we want to see. And now Lando Norris, 9.4 seconds to Max Verstappen. 6 seconds earlier in terms of tyre wear. Let's see what he can do. I think Max Verstappen has just done more than enough, to be honest. It was that it was the stop for Russell that was too slow, and then just Red Bull coming out in the perfect window of opportunity. That was the real thing for me. Just the fact that they were able to come out, have 6.5 seconds to Piastri in front. Max Verstappen could just put the hammer down on a fresh set of medium tyres and absolutely blow away the rest of the field. But so lovely to see side-by-side racing between Norris and Russell there. Russell's so hungry for victories, isn't he? You can just see George Russell is desperate to deliver something for Mercedes. Obviously, Lewis Hamilton leaving at the end of the season has kind of opened the door for him to be that number one. And I do think he wants kind of a stamp statement victory to be like, I'm the number one now. Doesn't matter that Lewis Hamilton is leaving. We're going to be able to drive this Mercedes forwards and really get the best out of the Mercedes package moving on. And now you look at where the Ferraris are, and Lewis Hamilton is going to be replacing Carlos Sainz. He's running ahead of him right now in terms of the standings in today's Grand Prix. So it's just, again, that flip of a coin between the top 4 teams at the moment. Max Verstappen's quality, though, showing outright at this moment in time. Lando Norris, let's have a little look at his lap times in comparison to Verstappen, as we see George Russell peeling into the pits. It is George Russell coming in then, had enough of those medium tyres, and wasn't happy that Lando Norris has gotten the better of him and gotten up into second place. Needs a better stop than it was last time around, and George Russell held up a little bit by the Ferrari coming into the pits behind him. It's Carlos Sainz going for a second stop. It's a 3-second stop for Russell, much better than the 5.2 that it was before. Carlos Sainz, 2.5 seconds, his stop, and he'll follow George Russell out of the pits once again. Russell and Sainz literally 1-2 through the pit lane all the time throughout today. They've stopped on the same lap twice now. Why is every team going for a 2-stop strategy? Because before the Grand Prix, that was kind of the highlighted best option, was the 2-stop strategy going from soft to medium to hard. I thought we might see a few cars start on the medium tyre, but it was just a whitewash of soft compound tyre starters here in Spain. And now we're seeing Russell and Sainz go onto that hard compound tyre. There is an availability of a 3-stop. It'd be a hell of like a roll of the dice. But 3-stop is available. Lando Norris actually has closed that gap from 9 seconds to 8 seconds. This is the problem, though. I just wonder how much Max Verstappen is holding in reserve. Because Lando Norris on that last lap was 0.6 seconds quicker than Max Verstappen. So Lando Norris closing that gap. But is Verstappen holding onto his tyres? You know what I mean? Is Verstappen turning down the engine a little bit? You never really know, especially when he's that far ahead at the front of the pack. Here's George Russell making a move on Pierre Gasly, not really battling between one another. George Russell on the fresh hard compound tyres. Gasly yet to make his second stop, so a bit of an easy overtake for them. Esteban Ocon also looks like he might come in. And Ocon, yeah, into the pits. Lance Stroll as well. So some more pit stops coming for those drivers. Esteban Ocon, a 2.2 second stop for him. And running around, goes onto the hard compound tyre. Is he going to come out in front of Albon? Yeah, Ocon did come out in front of Albon. So Ocon in the mix still, was, really hoping for a point scoring place. Pierre Gasly's been the one for Alpine today, who has really gone for it and just had that little bit of an edge in terms of pace at Alpine. Running in 7th place still on the medium tyre. Carlos Sainz still yet to go past those. So it will be 8th place for Pierre Gasly at this moment in time. Hulkenberg and Perez in the points too. But Ocon has made a second stop. Perez made a second stop, but very early. I just wonder whether those tyres are going to hold on or whether Sergio Perez is going for that 3-stop strategy that's been discussed. Nico Hulkenberg very, very late in his middle stint on the medium tyres, and I imagine will be coming in very soon. And literally, there he is. Nico Hulkenberg into the pits. 25 laps done on those medium compound tyres. Needs a fresh set of rubbers to go into the final stint of this Grand Prix. 28 laps left to go on the hard compound tyre for Nico Hulkenberg. And a point scoring place is very much up for grabs for that Haas car. Just needs to have a little battle with Esteban Ocon. Does he come out with Esteban Ocon? He's a bit off the back of Esteban Ocon, actually. I thought he was going to come out closer, Nico Hulkenberg. Going to be a tough final stint if he is going to finish up in the points. That Haas car. Oscar fighting his dad right now. Where is Oscar Piastri? Oh, yeah, he's just behind Charles Leclerc. Well, not fighting. Still 11.5 seconds the gap to Charles Leclerc. Hasn't actually closed that gap as Oscar Piastri. Charles Leclerc and Oscar Piastri lapping at very similar times to one another. And that gap just sort of staying as it is. But yeah, Charles Leclerc adopted Piastri. Lando Norris closing in. Should we have a little look at the race trace once again, just to show you that Lando Norris pace that I am talking about. So Lando Norris got past Carlos Sainz, then moved on, got past Hamilton, got past Russell, did lose quite a chunk of time here with that battle with Russell. You can see the dip in lap time for Lando Norris and George Russell there as they were fighting with one another. But look at Lando Norris just slowly creeping up. Max Verstappen at the top, obviously, that blue dot. And Lando Norris just slowly creeping up sector by sector. Now 7 seconds behind, getting to within 7 seconds behind. It's gonna be a very tasty little end to the race if Lando Norris can make this count. Obviously, 27 laps left to go. 22 laps done on Max Verstappen's tyres, and him struggling a little bit with them on the radio. Verstappen, please touch grass. He almost did. Had a little bit of a waver through turn 7 towards the beginning of the Grand Prix. Pierre Gasly and Zhou Guanyu. Here's a replay of the overtake by Pierre. Going down in towards turn 1. The Alpine on the fresh tyres now. Gasly has made a second stop. And yeah, Zhou Guanyu is sitting duck at that point. 30 laps done on those medium tyres for Zhou Guanyu. It was never even a contest. And makes his way past, does Pierre Gasly. Up into 9th place. And now hunting down the rear end of Sergio Perez. But I feel like Sergio Perez might have to pit again. Yeah, very long stop on the very long stint, sorry, on those medium tyres. Sergio Perez is going to go to the end on those. Although the car is getting sort of slightly lighter as the race goes on. That is Singapore, for somebody who asked in the chat. What happened to Russell? Russell was kind of faltered by a slow first pit stop. He lost 3 seconds, I would say, like a good 3 seconds in the first pit stop. And unfortunately, just ended up in a little bit of a no man's land. Then, because Lando Norris went for a different strategy, didn't have the tyres compared to Lando Norris, and it's gone quite early as George Russell in terms of getting onto the hards. I think he just wanted a little bit of clear air, to be honest with you, George Russell. And he's got a little bit of that. He's running behind Oscar Piastri, but it's got kind of a 4-5 second gap to Oscar Piastri to kind of run into. And that's sometimes what you need, is what we saw with Lando Norris. You just need a little bit of a gap to run at in these Formula 1 cars, and then you can show your real pace. When you're stuck in traffic or you're stuck behind a slower car, can really cause you some headaches, and then just closes the door to a lot of strategy decisions that you've got. Sort of Oscar Piastri as well was stuck behind Pierre Gasly for so long, and then ended up going longer on that stint. Finally was able to release a little bit of the pace of his McLaren. Oh, George Russell not happy on the hard compound tire. Maybe the hard compound tire is not the one. You know what? I wouldn't be mad because we started on the soft compound tire. I think Lando Norris, right, should go medium to medium. Let's just cut out the hard compound tire, pretend that we don't have it. If we've got a fresh set of mediums, has Lando Norris got a fresh set of mediums? I haven't got my tired thing up. I don't know if he's got a fresh set of mediums, but if he has, I think Lando Norris should go for the medium compound tire, if I'm honest with you. Lapped cars just coming around. Bottas and Joe. Bottas comes out ahead. Fair enough. Valtteri Bottas still ahead of his teammate, Zhou Guanyi. Lando Norris, though, closing the gap. Lewis Hamilton's been an interesting one. Has kind of kept parity with Max Verstappen in terms of lap time. Still like 11 seconds off the lead is Lewis Hamilton, but he's lapping at a very similar pace to the leader of the Grand Prix. It's kind of within a 10th or two most laps. He's not dropping off the lead substantially. Charles Leclerc has been going very quickly, though. 119.7. Still closing the gap to Lewis Hamilton. Has 8-lap fresher tyres, so Charles Leclerc on the similar strategy to Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, and it's starting to show that those guys might have actually had something running in them. Oscar Piastri closing in and hoping to maybe get the better of a Ferrari or two. Where is Piastri? 26 seconds off the lead. Oh no, Carlos Sainz still 5 seconds behind. It's going to be a very tough ask for Oscar Piastri to get the better of either of the Ferraris. Daniel Ricciardo comes in and stops as Lando Norris just coming down that pit straight. Gets past Daniel Ricciardo. Oh no, that must be Yuki Tsunoda. Daniel Ricciardo's in the pits. Hamilton into the pits then. And Hamilton... Is it hard compound tyres or mediums for Hamilton? Softs. Soft compound tyres for Lewis Hamilton, I think. Ooh. Okay. Where's Hamilton going to come out? I think that's Carlos Sainz just coming past. It is indeed. So Hamilton's going to come out in 7th place. He's on a scrubbed set of softs, is Lewis Hamilton. 23 laps left to go. They are slightly used. So they're a qualifying set of soft compound tyres. You can see 3 laps already completed on them during qualifying for Hamilton yesterday. But the soft compound tyre, let's see how quickly he can close in on Carlos Sainz then. I'll keep the deltas up for you. And Lando Norris is absolutely blistering around, by the way. I know that I was sort of 50-50 on this strategy. Lando Norris now within 4.5 seconds of Max Verstappen, and Verstappen is going to box. Verstappen is in. Verstappen is in. Lando Norris then released into the lead of this Grand Prix. And what is it? It's a soft compound tyre set for Max Verstappen. Oh, I don't know. Lando Norris hasn't got a fresh set of softs. We used the fresh set of softs at the beginning. Okay, so we haven't got a fresh set of softs. I'm not sure if Lando Norris got a fresh set of mediums either. It seems like our pace is way better on the mediums than it was on the softs. Whoever McLaren's strategy call engineer is for this weekend, do not envy them. It's going to be really difficult to judge. Verstappen has pitted. This is our chance now, Lando Norris is told. Let's look at the gap then. Verstappen, 18.5 seconds off Lando Norris in the lead right now. If that gap can get to 20-odd seconds, then Lando Norris will come out within touching distance of Verstappen. Verstappen is now going to have the hammer down, though, because Verstappen, 7 seconds, the gap to Leclerc. And this is what I mean, where now Verstappen just has so much open road in front of him. Like you can see Verstappen on the Delta just coming towards turn 9 now. Okay, he's got Tsunoda and Ricciardo in front of him as well, but they're going to get out of the way because of blue flags. Oh my God, Hamilton is already on the back of Carlos Sainz. I completely missed that. Hamilton has been absolutely electric in the first lap on those soft compound tyres and is now already looking at the rear end of the Ferrari. Of course, has been running ahead of the Ferrari on track for the majority of the Grand Prix. We expect Lewis Hamilton to finish in front of the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz, but the way he was able to close that gap so quickly is blisteringly quick. And Hamilton then, they're now coming down the straight. I think Hamilton's going to make fairly easy work of this. And George Russell also making fairly easy work of Oscar Piastri in front. And there is Hamilton, makes the move on Carlos Sainz, gets back ahead of him. Hamilton now up into 6th, Russell up into 4th, and the Mercedes cars looking much quicker. Now they're on a fresh set of tyres. Lando Norris. Lando Norris. if he's asked on the radio, if we have some delta, do you think you'll be able to pass him? And Lando Norris backs himself to the hill. He'll be able to pass him. Don't you worry. Max Verstappen has been much quicker than Lando Norris on that last lap, though, it has to say. But Max Verstappen closing that gap ridiculously. So Verstappen now this blue line down here to Charles Leclerc, who's running in second place. But you can see, so Verstappen came out behind Lando Norris here in this blue dot. And look at that just rush forward from Max Verstappen. Lando Norris wants to know whether he wants to finish first or third. He's almost questioning his engineer there, saying like, look, are we going to go for this? Are we actually going to try and get this win for us? Or do we want to just settle? Do we want to settle for third place? Do we want to settle for guaranteed points? Or do we want to risk it? Do we want to roll the dice? And you know what? Give it to Lando Norris. He's bloody rolling the dice. And I love it. Absolutely love it. Oscar Piastri comes out then. 7th place he was running. I think he's going to come out there because Gasly is a good chunk behind. There is Gasly coming around the final corner, but you can see Piastri exiting the pits and going down towards turn 1 on the graphic there. So Piastri now in 8th place, all by himself. Sergio Perez is the one that's interesting to me. 15 laps already done on that medium set. I think Sergio Perez might be on the 3 stop, but might just hold on. Here is then Lando Norris, box. And I think that's a good call. Max Verstappen was 18 seconds off the back of Lando Norris. And, it's going to be very close. George Russell, 22.9 seconds off Lando Norris. He comes into the pits. Where is Russell just coming around turn 13? Soft compound tyres onto Lando Norris's car. I think they're a scrubbed set, though. They must be, right? There goes Max Verstappen into the lead. Daniel Ricciardo also goes past. There is George Russell. It's going to be so tight with George Russell down in towards turn 1. And Lando Norris is going to be able to just about keep himself ahead. It was a nose whip ahead. And here we go then. This is what has opened up the door to Lando Norris. Lando Norris actually, though, on a similar set to Max Verstappen, I think what they've done there is covered off George Russell. I don't know if Lando Norris is really going to be able to catch Max Verstappen. 19 laps left to go. They're on the same tyre set. They're both on soft compound tyres, but obviously Lando Norris used his fresh set of softs at the beginning of the Grand Prix, whereas Max Verstappen had his fresh set of softs now. Ooh, and it isn't the smoothest stop either for Lando Norris. So 8 seconds the gap then. That's what's in front of Lando Norris. Basically guaranteed to come in second place because George Russell is on the hard compound tyre and they're much older. So Lando Norris will have the pace on Russell. Russell, I was going to say, should come third, but actually Lewis Hamilton is on the soft compound tyre. I think George Russell might have made a mistake going onto the hards, because Hamilton is closing in on his teammate. And you say, like, Hamilton was battling with Sainz a couple of laps ago. Got past Carlos Sainz fairly comfortably, and now the gap to Carlos Sainz is 3.5 seconds. Hamilton blistering on this final stint. A little bit of a mistake from Max Verstappen, possibly, because Verstappen has lost a second to Lando Norris in that first lap. That can't be pace, right? Max Verstappen must have lost or made a little error or something. If that's pace, that's insane. If that's pace, that's ridiculous from Lando Norris. I'm trying to see if there's any little mistakes there from the telemetry with Verstappen. There must have been. I'll keep an eye on it. There must have been. There's no way Lando Norris made 1.1 seconds in a lap. It's obscene. I mean, I hope and I pray. Goodness gracious. Going to eat dinner now. Of all the times to go. 10 laps left. Wait, 20 laps left. Good chunk, actually. 20 laps left. Eat dinner quick. eat dinner within the next sort of 7 laps. You want to be here for the last 10. I feel like there's going to be a lot of stories playing out. Lando Norris sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. I'll tell you what, maybe it was on pace. Lando Norris, a 117.3 from Lando Norris. He is not holding onto those tyres, is he? He is going for it. George Russell, though, causing a headache for Lewis Hamilton. I feel like Hamilton's got to be on the radio asking about getting past his teammate here because his pace is so much better. Here is Sergio Perez. I thought Sergio Perez was on a 3-stop. Here is that 3rd stop for Perez. 18 laps on the medium tyre, and I think a fresh set of softs for Sergio Perez because I know he did get through into Q3. Might not have a set of fresh softs. Sergio Perez, I'll keep an eye on it as he comes out of the pits. Perez. Oh, where's Ocon? Ocon's coming down the pit lane. It's going to be side by side with Perez and Ocon, but Perez is going to be on the soft compound tyre. It's slightly scrubbed set for Perez. And you'd imagine we'll be able to get past Ocon. But Perez now into 10th place. Hulkenberg just outside of the points in 11th place. Sergio Perez will have at least Ocon in his sights. But the problem is then Gasly is 10 seconds up the road. So a big, big ask for Sergio Perez if he's going to finish even in the top 8 in that Red Bull car. Lando Norris going to regret pushing. I feel like he's got to go for it, right? Got to go for it. Okay, yeah, he might end up regretting it. But this is what he said on the radio. He wants to go for the victory. He's not bothered if he comes in 3rd. He wants to finish 1st or 3rd. That's what Lando Norris wants. He's kind of gambling that 2nd place. And you know what? If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And to be fair, George Russell might be under a little bit of pressure from Lewis Hamilton, and that might just give Lando Norris enough of a gap because they are causing themselves a real headache. Yuki Tsunoda with a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Oh, that is an ugly penalty to get, isn't it? And there is Sergio Perez on Esteban Ocon. I said it would be fairly easy for Perez to get up into 9th, and there it is. But the 9.7 seconds to Pierre Gasly is what I'm interested in. Gasly on the hard compound tyre, 12 laps completed on them. Sergio Perez, 4 laps done on that. Well, it was first lap completed, but 3 laps in qualifying also completed on those soft compound tyres. So Sergio Perez versus Pierre Gasly is also a battle that could come to fruition as we get towards the end of the Grand Prix. Lando Norris is flying right now, a 117.1. Lando Norris is not holding onto these tyres in any sort of sense, is he? Here we go then. Lewis Hamilton is going to make the move. And George Russell tries to react, tries to keep the Mercedes of Hamilton behind, but can't. And Hamilton, once again, gets ahead of George Russell. And now, Lewis Hamilton, 5.5 seconds off Norris. Let's see what Hamilton's lap time is like. Now he's in a little bit of free air. This is what I mean. When you get the car in a bit of free air, now you can see the real lap time of it. We're seeing it from Lando Norris right now. He's pumping in 117s, 0.1s to Max Verstappen's 117.9 last time around. What can Hamilton do now that he's been not released by George Russell? I wouldn't say that there was any sort of team orders involved in that. I think Hamilton just made his way past because Russell peels off to the right-hand side, tries to cover the inside of turn 1. Hamilton around the outside of Russell. And a great move from Lewis Hamilton. Have to give it to him. Gets up the inside of turn 2, makes it count. And now is going to disappear up the road because he is on that soft compound tyre set. Lewis Hamilton now chasing Lando Norris for 2nd place. I think the only thing there is George Russell has properly cost Lewis Hamilton a couple of seconds. We need to push to the end now, Max. Max Verstappen given the go-ahead by GP. And GP saying, Lando Norris is absolutely going for it here. Now's the time like ever. And it does just make you wonder, like, if Red Bull have if they just got that first pit stop perfect. And I think that just might be the difference. I think Max Verstappen's first pit stop was perfect. Don't think it could have been at a better time. I think they got it exactly right in terms of the tyres they used. I think they got it exactly right in terms of where they released Max Verstappen. And I think the strategy from Red Bull today has just been sublime. And that's been the real difference from them. Obviously, McLaren have adapted to that. And you've got to hand it to Lando Norris. I thought they'd made a real mistake in terms of strategy, but Lando Norris has made it work. He's kept his tyres within a really good condition for that second stint. Done really, really well as Lando Norris. And now, on the softs, can push. Max Verstappen a 118.1, Lando Norris a 117.9 last time around. So only 2 tenths gained from Lando Norris. And this is where I think we might end up with Lando's pace sort of coming to a little bit of a plateau. Done very well as Lando Norris, don't get me wrong. But 8 seconds to Max Verstappen. It's a hell of a gap to make up, even in sort of 20 laps that he's had. Max Verstappen on the radio, having a little back and forth with GP. Thank you guys for the new subscribers. Massively appreciate that. Christian just came up. There was one before that, but I missed. Apologies. Was it Sally? Something like that. Apologies. I'm rubbish with names. And 0 IQ as well. Thank you for subscribing. That is not a 0 IQ move. Let's give you at least 10 IQ for knowing that you should have subscribed. Thank you, Fonzil, as well, 11, for subscribing to the channel. Massively appreciate all of the support. If you are enjoying the stream and the commentary, leave a like on it. Basically is the best thing you can do to help out the stream. Leaving a like on it, subscribing to the channel, trying to head towards 90,000 subscribers at this moment in time. I'm currently watching, got to say, I think Lando P2. I think he's plateaued, hasn't he? And Max Verstappen's also been given the go-ahead. Thing is the thing. Max Verstappen now quicker on that last lap, a 117.7 from Max Verstappen. Lando Norris only a 117.9 again. So yeah, I think that the plateau has plateaued in terms of Lando Norris's pace. I think we'll see that kind of curb itself. Carlos Sainz is catching up to the back of Charles Leclerc. Not a battle that I was expecting to see, to be honest with you, because Charles Leclerc on the fresher, soft compound tyre. But Carlos Sainz actually has closed in on his teammate. Maybe, just maybe, there'll be a Scuderia on Scuderia action to end the Grand Prix. Still 12 laps left to go. The Spaniard will want to get as high up in the order as possible in front of his home crowd. A podium off the cards now. Looking like that is guaranteed to be Verstappen, Norris, Hamilton in that order. There's Arthur Leclerc, Charles Leclerc's brother, in the Ferrari garage. Verstappen on used softs? No, Verstappen's on fresh softs. That's the thing. Verstappen kept his fresh softs for the end, where Norris used his fresh softs at the beginning of the Grand Prix. So I think that's where we're now seeing the turning point, where actually, because Max Verstappen was on fresh softs, Lando Norris is slightly scrubbed. I think Verstappen is just going to be able to keep that advantage and keep Lando Norris at that kind of 5-second gap, to be honest. Like, Lando Norris done really well, don't get me wrong. He was, 8-9 seconds off Max Verstappen when he came out of the pits, possibly even more. But let's have a little look, actually, on the deltas. So where was... Yeah, Norris came out of the pits 8 seconds, 8 and a bit seconds off Max Verstappen. So it's closed that by 3 seconds. It is now, just plateauing in terms of race pace. And looking like those two are just going to be kind of there and thereabouts at the end. 5 seconds, the gap to Max Verstappen on a day where I feel like Red Bull have done pretty much everything perfectly. It's not bad. Much better than it would have been last year. Let's just say that. Mercedes can also take a huge amount of positives from this weekend, can't they? Just a lot of positives to take for a lot of the teams, actually, to be honest. Have a little look. So if I show you the race tracing, you can just see Verstappen just plateauing in terms of Lando Norris's pace to Verstappen. Was kind of rocketing towards him for those first few laps and has now just edged off. Still gaining every now and then, but it's kind of a to and fro as opposed to a Norris just running away with it. Norris has run away from the Mercedes, though. You have to say that. Both Russell and Hamilton disappearing into the distance from Verstappen and Norris. And Hamilton now 9 seconds off the back of Lando Norris as well. George Russell then a couple of seconds off his teammate. Hasn't dropped off the back of Lewis Hamilton as quickly as I thought. Maybe Hamilton also coming to that realization that the soft compound tyres don't last as long as you'd hope. And then here is Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc as well underneath that. And Carlos Sainz was closing in. I think it's now just dropped off a touch. There was a kind of swap between the two. Was looking like he wanted to kind of come back at his teammate, but then decided against it, I think, more than anything. And Oscar Piastri just kind of running all by himself down in 7th place. So not really much to go on there. Gasly, you can see, dropping off the back here too. And then Perez and Ocon sort of rounding out the point scoring places. But Gasly dropping off, Perez dropping off, Ocon dropping off. Not really anyone doing anything to move themselves forwards in terms of this Grand Prix. The top 10 kind of be settled where it is, I feel. Kevin Magnussen, though, having a little battle with DRS-assisted Daniel Ricciardo. Ricciardo's going to make that move. So 16th place moves to Daniel Ricciardo. Yuki Tsunoda had a bit of a weird Grand Prix. Did pick up a 5-second penalty. That's all the way back in 19th. Not where you expect the Japanese driver to be after stunning start to the season that he's had in the new look RB team. Max is just insanely good. Yeah, that is the thing, isn't it? When Max Verstappen is given the go-ahead to push, he's still a very good racing driver, is the problem. Like, I know that the Red Bull has been dominant, and I know he's had the best car, but at the end of the day, Max Verstappen is also just very, very quick. Like, yes, you can argue, okay, he's had the best car, he's done the best things, blah, 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 blah. He's just also very quick, is Max Verstappen. He is a very good racing driver. Lando ended like Imola. Yeah, it does have Imola vibes, doesn't it? Although I don't think Lando Norris is going to close into within a second of Max Verstappen. I think he's just, again, clearly been the second quickest driver. And as much as Lando Norris has, done slightly different strategy things today or tried to push in various places, I think at the end of the day, Lando Norris just has been the second best driver on the grid. And when you are the second best driver on the grid to a driver like Max Verstappen ends up winning. That is just the case, unfortunately. Lando Norris slotting into second place. I'll take it. Started from pole position, coming in second place. If we look at where McLaren are in comparison to where they were in Spain last year, I'd have absolutely bitten your hand off for a second place finish. So we'll take that there. Lewis Hamilton also will absolutely take a podium finish in his Mercedes. It's been a really tough start to the season with Lewis Hamilton. Obviously, all of the behind the scenes as well. It's been really difficult because, I don't know, like the balance at Mercedes, him knowing he's going to Ferrari next year, it's got to be a weird sort of feeling behind the scenes at Mercedes, hasn't it? And, Alex Albon actually getting a bit sideways and going into the gravel. Yeah. It's actually trying to chase Yuki Tsunoda, and that is very un-Alex Albon. Car completely lost itself. And Alex Albon into the gravel. Ouch. Chris Amp, please shout out. There you go. You can stop messaging that now. Lando Norris. 4.7 seconds the gap. This is what I mean. It's just plateaued a little bit in terms of that pace, hasn't it? Was really going for it, and now just dropping out. Alex Albon on the radio and questioning what on earth happened. It did seem really uncharacteristic of Alex Albon to make that kind of mistake. And it maybe was something mechanical, because Albon on the radio saying, look, I need to know what happened there. They'll probably go through that in the debrief, I would imagine. Alex Albon will have questions because the Williams has been nowhere near it this weekend. Started from the pit lane, going to finish in 18th place. Logan Sargent also clearly 20th by a considerable margin. I mean, he's 11 seconds behind Yuki Tsunoda, who's pitted 3 times. He's 12 seconds off his teammate Alex Albon, who started from the pit lane. Both of the Williamses just absolutely nowhere. Watching the Euros after this? Yes, indeed. Cannot wait for it. The end of Group A. Does feel like Germany's group, doesn't it? But Hungary, I'd like Hungary to get a result, to be honest with you. I know I should probably say Scotland, but I feel like Hungary, I maybe like a little bit more than Scotland. Norris closing in? Yeah, but it's not by enough, unfortunately. He needed to be within a couple of seconds at this point. 6 laps left to go. 4.5 seconds, too large a gap. Lewis Hamilton also running around in 3rd place. Has elongated his lead to George Russell. Russell did quite well, actually, to hold on to the back of Lewis Hamilton, at least for a few laps. But Hamilton on the soft compound tyres just disappearing away. Charles Leclerc. Ooh, okay. Charles Leclerc just within striking distance, apparently. I thought that battle was kind of done and dusted. I thought 3 seconds would have just been a little bit too much for Charles Leclerc. But let's have a look at their last lap time. So Russell, a 119.2. Leclerc, a 118.7. So 0.5 of a second. So that is 6 laps, and we've got 5 left to go. Leclerc might just be able to do a last lap maneuver on George Russell. It is going to be right down to the wire, though, for Charles Leclerc. Daniel Ricciardo moving up to 15th place. And Daniel Ricciardo's been on a little bit of a tear, actually, towards the end of the Grand Prix. Made a move past Magnussen, now past Bottas as well, up into 15th place. Don't get me wrong, no points on the table for the RB team this weekend, but at least some lovely race pace from Daniel Ricciardo and some data that they'll be able to hopefully learn from moving forwards. Bottas on a tyre management mission. Yeah, doing something special. 32 laps on those hard compound tyres is ridiculous, isn't it? It's just too much. It's just too much, and it's realizing now that he's losing out massively. 3 seconds slower than Daniel Ricciardo on that last lap was Valtteri Bottas. And Stake not putting him in the best of positions for this one. Can Perez overtake Gasly? Also, I think that over 2 seconds at this point in the race is just a bit too much. Closing in, don't get me wrong. And let's look at the lap times. Oh, maybe actually he's lapping 9/10 of a second quicker. It's going to be similar to Charles Leclerc and Russell. It's going to be like, needs to put the hammer down now, does Sergio Perez. And it might be on the last lap, I'll be honest. Norris tried his best? Yeah. Within 4 seconds. To be honest, finishing within 4 seconds at Max Verstappen of Spain, considering where they were at the beginning of the season, you know, you look at the results in Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Max Verstappen was winning by like 20 seconds in those races. I'd take a 4-second gap. I'd take that. A second place finish, a 4-second gap. Absolutely. As a McLaren fan, I think Oscar Piastri is the one that's frustrating for me. Poor in qualifying yesterday, 7th place today. Still a considerable chunk behind Sainz and Leclerc. Never really looked like getting anywhere close to either of the Ferraris. And the Ferraris haven't been quick, if I'm honest. And Max Verstappen still 3.5 seconds the lead. Then Norris in second, Hamilton third. Rounding out the podium places. Hamilton has dropped off considerably, though. 14 seconds off the back of Lando Norris. George Russell in 4th place. Charles Leclerc 5th. Although now 1.5 seconds the gap. I'll tell you what, if Charles Leclerc can get within DRS this lap, so if he can have DRS going down towards turn 1 with 2 laps left to go, then that move might be on. Carlos Sainz in 6th place, though. We'll have to settle for that. Piastri in 7th. Gasly in 8th place is under pressure from Sergio Perez. And also, very similar to what I said, if Sergio Perez can be within DRS range of Gasly with 2 laps left to go, then I think the move might be on. But still 1.77 seconds the gap for Sergio Perez to the Frenchman. Ocon looking like he is going to get that double points finish for Alpine. Looked like it was off the cards at one point. Ocon was having a pretty tough race. But to be fair to him, battled well. Double points finish for Alpine is back on the cards. And to be honest, at the beginning of the Grand Prix, I did say I feel like the Alpines will finish 8th. I feel like the Alpines will finish 9th and 10th at the best. So Gasly getting an 8th place would be a stunning finish for the team. Because let's face it, Sergio Perez should have done a little bit better. Although he went for the 3-stop strategy. Maybe that wasn't optimal. And in the end, could have gone for something a little bit more like what we've seen from Lando Norris. Lando Norris, though, closing the gap still. Does feel like Max Verstappen might have just decided to hold on to his tyres and his engine that little bit more, because Verstappen a 119 dead, Norris a 118.2, but it's just going to be a little bit too little too late. Charles Leclerc also not within DRS range of George Russell as of yet, and some back markers in the way of George Russell. You can just see George Russell coming towards turn 7 on the graphic. Lance Stroll is actually in the way of this pair. So Charles Leclerc is going to have to go for it, and it feels like it's going to have to go for it literally on the final lap. It's going to be a last lap dive. Sergio Perez, a similar thing. Sergio Perez catching up to the back of Gasly. That pair is going around turn 4 at this moment in time, as Max Verstappen starts the final lap of the Grand Prix by overtaking Logan Sargent for the 2nd time. So Logan Sargent lapped twice. Lando Norris 2.5 seconds off the race leader, Max Verstappen. Charles Leclerc, though, DRS open. This is the move on the last lap. No, it just wasn't within striking distance. As I said, I think he needed the DRS just that lap before, to be honest with you. And I think Charles Leclerc is just going to finish, probably within a second of George Russell, but just behind George Russell. Although George Russell under pressure from the Ferrari for 4th place. Perez is the other one that we have to keep an eye on. Perez and Gasly much closer, actually. Sergio Perez is going to go for the move down in towards turn 1. Going past the start-finish line, Sergio Perez, DRS wide open, on the fresher soft compound tyre to Gasly's hard. Is Gasly going to be able to put up much of a fight? No, Sergio Perez does get that move. But as we can see, Max Verstappen coming around the final corner, and Verstappen takes victory in Spain. It's a couple of seconds shy. Lando Norris comes home in 2nd place. Lewis Hamilton is going to come home in 3rd place, but by 15.5 seconds to Lando Norris to round out the podium positions. And then George Russell is doing his best to hold off Charles Leclerc. They're just coming around the final corner together, and Russell is going to hold on to 4th, with Charles Leclerc finishing within 0.4 of a second of the Mercedes car. Carlos Sainz comes around the final corner as well to finish in 6th. Oscar Piastri is going to finish in 7th place. Sergio Perez did manage to get that move on Gasly done. You know what? 9th and 10th is where I thought the Alpines would finish. It's where they finished up overall. And it looks like that's where they're going to settle. Sergio Perez just having a little look where he is, coming around turn 13 and 14. So just to finish out the point scoring places, Alonso takes the checkered flag. Hulkenberg is also going to be the last runner, I think. Or is Yuki Tsunoda? Oh no, Yuki Tsunoda's taken it. Gasly comes across the line 9th. Ocon to round out 10th place. And Hulkenberg is the final car just outside of the points. Nico Hulkenberg in 11th place for Haas. And just a little bit better qualifying from them, maybe. Would have been able to battle with Esteban Ocon for that 10th place finish. But you've got to hand it to the Alpines. Both of them up in the top 10 in terms of qualifying yesterday. They delivered that in terms of points. So to round out the Spanish Grand Prix for you, it was Max Verstappen taking the victory once again here in Spain. Lando Norris will get the fastest lap point, as well as the 18 points for 2nd place behind Verstappen, and another podium for Norris. Lewis Hamilton will round out the podium places, picks up 15 points for Mercedes in 3rd place. George Russell will end up in 4th. I think he'll be a little bit disappointed. There's a poor pit stop from him. There was also just a little bit of tyre strategy, not quite going George Russell's way. Went onto the hard compound tyre. Seemed like the soft compound tyre was the better way to go. And he'll end up in 4th. Charles Leclerc, though, within a second, within 0.4 of a second of George Russell, will end up in 5th. Carlos Sainz in 6th place, was kind of running around on his own at his home Grand Prix towards the end there. Oscar Piastri in 7th place. Sergio Perez will finish in 8th place. And the two Alpines, Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon, will finish in 9th and 10th place, respectively. Nico Hulkenberg 11th, Alonso 12th, Zhou Guanyu 13th, 14th place goes to Lance Stroll, 15th for Daniel Ricciardo, 16th place is Valtteri Bottas, Kevin Magnussen in 17th place, Alex Albon finishes in 18th, Yuki Tsunoda 19th, and Logan Sargent finishes the race in 20th place. No DNFs at all from the grid today. No safety cars, no red flags. A very clean race from the 20 drivers out on track. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you could leave a like, that would be absolutely amazing. Subscribe to the channel if this is your first race. We're back live all weekend next weekend for the Austrian Grand Prix as well. That's the sprint qualifying, the sprint race, the qualifying itself, and the Grand Prix on Sunday. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of those live streams coming up next weekend. Thank you guys so